Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this week's episode, I, Aaron Gehrke, am sitting with Marcus Huff, and we're talking about the Christian life, in particular, the fruit of the Spirit. So it's our goal, as always, that you'll hear something in this conversation and then go start another spiritual conversation with somebody else. So, as always, we hope you enjoy this conversation. Marcus.
Hey.
How are you? I'm glad somebody's here with an actual coffee mug. You know, Kevin's been using a juice cup sometimes. He's been drinking juice out of the new juice machine. Yeah. Sometimes he uses his travel mug. So there's nothing like two, coffee mugs clinking together.
Some good old ceramic.
Boom. Work. Hey, if you're just listening, this is Marcus Huff joining me today. Marcus is the Director of Youth and Campus Ministry here at St. Peter and Paul. And Kevin's in Milwaukee for the Synod Convention. So did you ever go to one of those? Or
I haven't gone any here in the States. No.
But you did it because you were part of the Lutheran Church in Canada, right?
Yep. Yeah, Lutheran Church Canada. I went to some of those big conventions.
Okay.
But more to promote my ministry. And so I did promotions and then president's parties and stuff like that. But gotcha. I didn't sit in to do all the business side of it. So
yeah, I did it in, I can't remember. It was 2012 or 2013. I went as the pastoral delegate.
Okay.
And I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's by far the most that I've ever been involved in, like Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're going to make an amendment on something, how you make, I don't know. We got to re-vote on this thing, and then the amendment has to pass, and then you put it back in, and then we vote on the I don't know. There's a whole thing.
It's true. Yeah. And either it runs really well with Roberts or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or the crowd tells you how it should be running by a couple of people. And yeah. But
anyways, those are always interesting things. I don't know. I don't know who's listening, but just I don't know. It's sometimes it's important for us to remember that we're actually part of a denomination. Like, I think a lot of people that come to St. Peter and Paul come to St. Peter and Paul, but we are part of in a sense, a global church body.
Yeah.
And so we're part of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And each denomination, like in the United States, is structured differently. Mm-hmm. So like I don't know, like, so sometimes church denominations have like a top-down structure where there's some bishop or something that tells congregations what to do.
Right.
I just learned in the Methodist Church that whatever the hierarchy of the Methodist Church, they actually own church buildings.
Okay.
So the congregation doesn't own the building. So in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, we have it's called a congregational structure. So our church is we are autonomous, so we're individual churches, but we volunteer to work together and participate together. So it's a very, very democratic thing at that. Yeah. So anyways, so that's why we have these conventions every 3 years, and all the congregations get together to vote on issues that we all mutually then agree to continue supporting or walking together in these things. So yeah.
And as culture brings up new challenges and opportunities, they address those things as the full membership, if you will, to get together and how do we want to respond to this?
Yes.
How does the Bible say we should respond to these situations and create some policy around that?
Yeah. Yep. Or sometimes the convention will do that, or the convention will say, the church body as a whole will say, hey, we would like to create a task force that will do this. Or a lot of times with theological issues or issues of the day, there's already an organization in our synod called the Commission on Theology and Church Relations.
Yep.
So that's a bunch of theologians and pastors and professors that will write little booklets on, issues of the day and responding to those things. So the convention can say like, hey, what about abortion or whatever? We vote to ask the Commission on Theology and Church Relations in the next 3 years to write us a booklet on what the Bible says about that. So, anyways, it's an interesting thing, but it's good for us to remember that we're not alone in our following after Jesus.
I think it's huge too as you travel over in the summer season and you gather with other people that see Scripture in the same lens, that worship, that's get together and we value. Once a month we get with all the other pastors in our circuit and worship together, or I take the youth to gatherings with other youth that worship and have learned and studied the catechism that we have as well, and we're bigger than just us. We're not this little. We're a good-sized church, but we're not this church on its own. Part of some other things. You go to college, you can find a Lutheran church that believes in what you believe and understand that, and have the word given to you. And it's best understanding. For sure. I think that's a good segue too to think about what I was preaching about this last weekend. John 15, Jesus says, "I'm the vine and you are the branches." Yeah. And so you can think about that. Like anybody who's connected to Jesus is one of those branches, and that vine spans the globe. So we actually participate in this vineyard of Christ. Even beyond the walls of Saints Peter and Paul. So, I was responding to this question in this sermon this last week. Like, the question was very specific about if I have a friend who says they're a Christian, but they don't seem to act like a Christian, are they a Christian? Are they going to be saved? But also, like, how do I help that person to recognize that living as a Christian is actually a good thing to do? I don't know. Have you ever run into that before, or thought that yourself? Yeah. The idea of just, I don't know, wear a Packers jersey doesn't make me a football player. Like I'm on that team, but some often as a Christian, a lot of times people are like, I'm a Christian, but you're like, but what? Your lifestyle doesn't look or doesn't mirror that of what I'm reading in the Bible. Or same ways like that. So I'm sitting on my couch with my Packers jersey on. It's the football players are on the field. They're on the TV. They're out there. Kind of thing. But it's not a great example. But all the time with people, something's not adding up, or there's opportunity to breathe into them and love on them and say, hey, let's talk about this. Yeah. Where's this disconnect, or what does it mean to you? You identify as a Christian and say you're a Christian, but what does that look like? Maybe a church. That's it. That's not even in the Bible. I go to church. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a lot of times the one thing that we point to. It's are you active in church? If you are, then you must be a true Christian. Right. But then on the other hand, there are people who will say things like, I don't need the church to be a Christian. Nature is my church, and I go to church when I'm out on the boat fishing. So it becomes a challenging thing, and I think this is what the person was asking, in the question, which is how is it possible to determine the salvation of somebody else? Okay. Based on what we see in their life, and I've heard people really wrestle with this before, and sometimes people. Well, I do want to talk about the fruit of the Spirit in a minute, but sometimes people will say you'll know the tree by its fruit, or so. You'll know if somebody is a true Christian if they're producing fruit. Yeah. So you can determine whether or not somebody is saved, whether or not they're producing fruit. And
as Lutherans, we wouldn't really go that far,
right?
And so this is where we like make pretty clear distinctions that salvation comes by grace through faith, not on your works, but because of Christ alone,
right?
And so that's like over, and that's just over and done with,
right?
It's just given to you, and you all you got to do is just receive it. And that seems like, for a lot of people, that seems not fair.
Okay.
I was just having this conversation last week with somebody who's actually just exploring Christianity, and she was just saying, like, so even like the worst criminal, they could just be like a bad criminal their whole life,
mm-hmm.
and at the end of their life, if they had the chance, they could just say they believe in Jesus, and they could be saved. And I was like, well, there's actually a Bible story about that.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? And so we read about the thief on the cross.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, literally, here's a criminal,
right?
Entire life,
yeah.
In his last moment, Jesus says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." And so I think for a lot of people, it's like, man, really? But that's what grace is.
Yeah. There's other stories, the parable too, like where the workers get hired and they'll get paid the same portion.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing, God's like, it's my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wrestle too with the fact that this doesn't seem fair.
Uh-huh.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair that we receive this gift, period.
Yeah.
And then we live in a culture too that wants to earn everything.
Yeah.
And so as I read through your Monday morning email too, you receive this. And as I read it, I thought, that's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to like get a free gift and not feel like you have to reciprocate it back or prove that you're worth getting it, or just.
Well, yeah, we have so much pride.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much pride to be like, I don't need help. I got it.
Right.
Or at least like, let me try.
Yeah.
Let me do my best,
Yep.
and show you I mean it.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the way we operate. So yeah, to be vulnerable, to be humble, to be broken, and to be totally dependent on Jesus is, I'm in.
And then we're called to give this countercultural response of not earning it, but living in this gift and like a pay it forward almost kind of narrative, and just like live out this gift, which kind of gets into the fruit of the Spirit narrative of what this looks like as you live in this joy, peace, love, kindness, patience, gentleness, self-control. Like how it moves through as a response to it. So I mean, there is a response to it, and how you live it out.
Yeah.
But it's not like, well, I have to do more so I can keep this thing.
Yeah.
Or hold it, but going like, man, if you really like sit and wrestle like the thief on the cross, going like, I don't deserve this, and this gift is given to you. Like, we're teaching on some of this with the high school kids, and I said, oh, this is one of the hardest things. I can tell you about God's grace and love to the best of my ability here, but unless you fall on your face and mess up and know you don't deserve it and receive grace, you'll never understand the fullness of what grace really looks like. And in that moment, that sweet spot, it'll just radiate from you to show it and give it to somebody else. It's just theory. It's just head knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's that pruning narrative that you used in your sermon.
Yeah.
Discussing through it. Like, I don't know. I mean, that was one thing I want to talk to you about, was like that concept of pruning and being pruned. We've got 2 apple trees in our backyard, and so I pruned them this spring. I'm not sure if that was the right time to do it. Okay. It is bearing much fruit this year.
Okay.
But my wife thought I killed it. I pruned it way back, and so I read some articles on how to do it, and snipped here and snipped there, and I said, I hope this works. Let's see. And it's doing really, really well.
Awesome. Yeah.
But the pruning was from someone else looking at it. They said, whoa, you sure pruned a lot off that tree.
Yeah.
Did you have to do all that? Should we just start smaller or whatnot? And it's filled right back in, and it's bearing lots of fruit. But
so this the sermon that I gave with those Bible passages is a conversation that I've had very recently with two different people that I've been discipling.
Yeah.
Because they were not in a good spot. They still like said they were Christian people, but if we looked at the Galatians 5 list of like works of the flesh versus fruit of the Spirit,
yeah,
there was a number of the works of the flesh that these people had been making a practice of.
Okay,
not really like loving it, not saying like I want this, but just doing it, like,
yeah,
falling into temptation over and over and over again, pursuing these things. And so in my conversations with these people, and you can do this kind of stuff like in one-on-one discipleship, where I can say to people in these honest conversations, that is not good. This is not good.
Yeah.
What you are doing, being addicted to this thing, this is not good.
Yeah.
You need to one, repent of it. You need to turn to God, and you need to tell God, I want my heart to change about this thing. Please help me to hate this thing.
Yeah.
I want to loathe this sin. I want to flee from it. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And until you can get to the place where you're actually saying that, you're going to keep falling into that. So I'll speak very like pointedly to people, and then encourage them to flee from those things and flee into the loving arms of the Father, who will forgive you and welcome you back and forgive you and pour His grace into you. And so I've been watching these things happen. And so it's been in the last month that with two different people I had, basically that sermon was based on conversations that I've had, real life conversations with people. But the pruning, so I had mentioned to both of them the same thing about the pruning, because the pruning in both their lives has not always been, it's not fun.
Right.
It's actually, some of it's been like train wreck, like hardship in life, and you're like, you're tempted to ask, like, is God pruning me, or does my life just suck?
Yeah.
But I think we've had these conversations on this podcast before where it's really nuanced, it's like, I think when we were talking about suffering, we talked like this, whether it's like, is God disciplining me, or is this just a result of the brokenness in the world? And it's like, well, God's going to work even through the brokenness in the world to prune you, because, if something's going awry in your life, you have a way to respond to that.
Right.
You can either cling to Jesus, abide in Him,
right,
or you can go cling to works of the flesh. Dude, hold on 1 second. Our battery's about to die.
Okay.
I'm glad we have this flashing light. I forgot to plug it. And so you can respond, either to the works of the flesh or to the fruit of the Spirit, and so God is going to be at work in that, helping to make sure that you're not clinging to the works of the flesh. And so again, in those conversations, like it's been really cool to walk with these people and to watch them be pruned, as painful as that is.
Yeah.
But to watch, like, even through that pruning, it's like you can, from the outside, I can see what God is doing. I try to tell the people that, where it's like, almost like your apple tree, where it's like, I can see that God is ridding you of a lot of mess and a lot of brokenness. And I can see the potential for fruit, but sometimes even like, sometimes it takes a while for that fruit to come, I mean, even like apple trees, I think if I were to go to to the garden center and buy a fruit tree. It's going to take me years to even like get abundant fruit, you know, even like, strawberry fields or whatever, they'll only let them grow for a couple of years and then they rip them all up, put a cover crop down and start elsewhere, you know? So I think like, it's that like trust in Jesus and just like staying connected to him and trusting that the pruning is going to be beneficial and that fruit will come.
Yeah, the word that I kept coming in my head with listening to you talk on that is hope. I prune the apple tree in hope and anticipation that it's going to bear fruit. I'm not pruning it because we'll see what happens, or like get rid of this thing and then it's just this thing's out of my life and what else do I cling on to? You get rid of this to cling on to the hope that's promised to you. Our youth trip to Mackinac Island, we've talked about the anchor of hope. We talk about how hope is defiant. When you rest in hope, there's a concept of defiancy of hope that it's pure. You hold on to the hope of what fruit you're going to bear. Now, the fruit of the Spirit is going to come on that it's defiant to saying, no, I'm not going to fall back to this crap. Mm-hmm. You know what? This does suck, but it's going to be better. Mm-hmm. You know, you have hopefulness in it. And it's just, there's a joy, there's a directional look as you walk through all these things versus just going, this would be good for you. Let's just cut this out, kind of a thing like that. Like, you do it knowing where you are going. And I think the other important part too of the pruning process is this walk with Jesus isn't about like adding more stuff into your life. A lot of it often is getting rid of stuff. It's about less. Pruning is actually like taking it back to the basics so that Christ can fill it in. We all want to fill our lives with stuff or something. We have this emptiness that came from the brokenness of the garden, and we've all worked to fill it with something. You know, a lot of addictions are just trying to find, longing for peace or connection or community or something to fill that hole that's inside of us, that wound that is there. Until you prune that, until you get that out of it can't heal. It can't be full of something, you know, like you look at the works of the flesh, and I was thinking through those this morning and going like, those are all like inward things. They're all life-taking things.
They only lead to death.
They're not life-giving things. You know, part of our focus here is being alive in Christ. And we are in the position, and your work with these people too is this life-giving. We seek for people to be alive in Christ. And having to speak the truth in love is a sharp blade that gets to the point and says, this needs to be cut out. And we'll walk with you. It's a good healing journey as we graft Christ back into your narrative. And I think the more that I do this with other people, and the more that I have welcomed the Father's pruning in my own life, like the more I'm convinced that hope is a reality. You know, because I've seen it happen. You know, it's like, you know, if pruning your apple trees is the first time, when you're cutting all that off, you're like, oh boy, you know, like, you know, your wife's nervous, you're nervous, you're like, is this going to do anything? But then if it produces an abundant harvest, it's like, okay, I can be confident that cutting off that much was actually good. You know? And so I think that's where we can trust the Father's pruning in our lives. You can trust that because the Father knows what's best, and He only wants what's best for you, and He wants you to bear much fruit because that's good for you and is good for other people. That's it. Like, He wants you to have life and life to the full. Like, it's all about good life. And life
that's what Him. I mean. So, that's what He said. That's what He said in John 15. He doesn't say life to the full. I mean, it's in John 10. He says, "I'll give you life and life to the full." But in John 15, He said, "I came to do this for you, that your joy may be full," which is like, wow, full of joy. That's awesome. Actually, one of the people that I've been discipling, that's actually how I had this conversation with one of the people, because he had gone through a bunch of junk, a lot of pruning, lot of leaning on Jesus. And then some of our meetings, he had been pretty down and beat up. And then he came and I was like, how you doing? And he's like, I just feel full of joy. This is amazing. I was like, really? Tell me more, And he was just telling me how like he'd been leaning on Jesus, how he'd been like fighting against the addiction and reading his Bible more, talking about faith, like working on reconciling some relationships. Okay. I was like, okay, well, let's read. Jesus promises that your joy will be full when you're connected to him. And we read Galatians and we talked about pruning and how those things have been pruned. And now hey, look, one of the fruits of the Spirit is joy. And it's like, and it was like, so that was a cool conversation to have where it was like, yes, this is the result of what happens when you are attached to Jesus and you let God have his way with you. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, getting back to that original question that started the whole thing too, is like, your life should be bearing fruit in Christ. Yeah. And can you be a follower of Christ and have a drought season or not bearing much fruit? Yeah, but part of why we do this in community is so that we can, in a healthy way, lean on each other and have relationships and encourage that pruning. Yeah. So one of the things I pruned in the apple tree was any branch that was going up to the sky. And so you look around, and it was like a 3-4 day process of I trim a bunch, and I look, and I'm like, oh, there's one there. Oh, I missed a couple over there. And
really?
But it was just some kind of directional of let's take out some of these things.
Okay.
And when you're in community, you can't help but do life together and be aware of things that are maybe directionally not going in the right direction where you want them to go to. And that's why we have life groups, so we can lean on each other and say, help me with this, or as staff, or what are ways we can grow, or what something that you may see we can prune. And that's a hard trust conversation to get into, to lean on somebody else and be like that too. But God's body, his church, his people are meant to be in community. And the whole thing about his message is to live it and bear fruit, to give it to other people and pass it on, not sit out in the woods by yourself and just have a tummy ache because you just eat all your own fruit. Like, it's not what you're supposed to, like, it's meant to be in community and deal with the hardships and really prune out anger and spin it off to love and work through these things. It's easy to be patient when you have to deal with anybody else, and
I think that's often the temptation. I mentioned that, like, sometimes people will look to the fruit to say, hey, this person is, a Christian or whatever. And I think sometimes that's our temptation to be like, look at all my fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, they're a pretty scrawny branch over there, but mine's pretty, I got a lot of love, a lot of joy, a lot of peace, And so that's where it's like, well, if that's the way you're living, like, you go ahead and share some of that fruit. Like, the fruit is meant to be consumed and and shared. And this is a really, like, this was one of Luther's, like, revelation or realizations in the Reformation. Like, when we talk about, like, our good works or why we live as Christian people, sometimes we'll even use the word vocation. Like, when we live out our calling, why do we do that? Yep. It is not to climb some ladder with God. Like, we don't do all this good so that God will reward us and give us some sort of higher status. We don't do a bunch of good in this world, even to, I hate to say it, we don't even do it to, like, make God happy. Right. We can't make God happy. Right. God's only happy with us on account of Christ. Yeah. But we do all this. We do this as an outpouring of what's been poured into us, and because our neighbors need us to. People need us to live like Jesus. Jesus wants people to know him, and the way that they're going to get to know him is through his people. Right. So, like, that's why we do it, and that's a clear distinction, though, because we're often, like, tempted to, live a Christian life and, like, turn back and look at God and be like, did you see that one? Wasn't that one good? Right. Like, we want a thumbs up from God. And it's like, God has already delighted in you. Right. He's already delighted in you.
Yeah.
Through Christ. Like, as much as he will ever be delighted in you, he's already that much delighted in you.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that. And so just I find that to be very freeing, to be very freed up to solely trust that I am saved, I am justified, God delights in me because he delights in me on account of Christ. And then I can just go freely and almost recklessly, almost carelessly, just giving grace to people, giving that love and joy because I'm connected to the vine, and he's going to keep pouring. He's going to keep pouring into me. So
Yeah.
like, I'm never going to go empty.
Right.
That's the beautiful thing. It's not like I have a certain amount of his love, and if I give it all up today, then I'm going to be out of love. It's like, no, it's just, just flows through you. You know? So.
Yeah. We're challenged. We get invited to live out this holy identity that he bestows to us. We're like, why wouldn't you want to live a holy life? Like, why? Well, do I have to do this? Well, why would you want to like seek the bare minimum in this opportunity? Like, he sees you as completely like washed and pure, and why not try that this week? Like, lean into that your identity as being that, versus having to dance in the shadows and work on these little things, and like simply rest in the fact that you're washed. Live in joy. Be weird and wild and love on people and care for them and be patient. Like, wait in the line for the bridge. Don't zip around and just breathe. Just go, God loves me. This is awesome. And fruit, and then when you do that, and when you stay connected to that vine and you just trust that, I believe the fruit will come. Yeah. People ask you, well, why are you doing that? Because it looks different than what other people are doing. And you can say, Jesus, this is why I get to do that. And you talk about, people have asked me too, like, when do you have these conversations about how do you share your faith? Like, part of it is you live your life in Jesus and his hope and truth, and people will ask you. Yeah. You don't have to like go out there and force it or tell, like, they'll ask you like something different. Like, it's noticeable. And that's bearing fruit. That's sharing the fruit on with people. Yeah. And you're not trying to sell it to anybody. Like, they want what you have, and this joy and this peace in this turbulent world that we're in. Yeah. Who doesn't want to be the recipient of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? Yeah. Yeah. It's that's what people are hungry for, because they're hungry for Jesus. Those are the characteristics of Jesus. So, and we settle for other things, but we don't need to. Right on. Yeah. Dude, good conversation. Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm going to go eat an apple. Are you? Yeah, I think so. I'm going to eat some pot roast. Pot roast. That's good. Actually, I said in my sermon, I said in the first service, I said, like, go and be spiritually plump. Uh-huh. I had people say that they liked that line. At the late service, the Spirit of the living God gave me even more words that I hadn't written, I had never thought of before, but I said, go and be spiritually plump, be filled with the juiciness of Jesus. I was like, oh. I'll work on that bumper sticker this week. Spiritually plump with the juiciness of Jesus. That's a good line, isn't it? I think it's true. We'll see you in the back of the church van. Come September. Right, awesome, man. All right, take care.